So welcome back to Explore Africa series, and today we're going to be looking at the Africa wildlife and ecosystems. Africa, first and foremost, is the home to the most spectacular animal wildlife and ecosystems on the planet. And Africa boasts of wide range of habitats. Habitats means where animals live, or where you have plants, different types of plants, from dense rainforests to vast savanna, deserts, and coastal regions. The African continent is a haven for nature enthusiasts and animal lovers alike. So this is why we've seen a lot of people, go to Kenya to go and do safari. There's a lot of nature in Africa that people go for tourism. And so the meaning of wildlife is animals that live in the wild without being introduced by humans. What's the difference between, based on the definition of wildlife that I've just given? So wildlife is animals that live in the wild without being introduced by humans, right? Now compare that to zoos. You've been to a zoo before, right?
A zoo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We haven't. Yes, we have.
We have. So what's the difference when you have a wildlife that is a natural environment and a zoo that is artificial, man-made? Okay? Yeah. What do you think the difference is?
That in the wildlife, animals like move around, but in the zoo, animals in wildlife get to move around more than animals in the zoo.
In the zoo. That's good actually.
They have like a cage or something.
Yes, that's very good. So in wildlife, it means that animals live in the natural environment. Okay. Zoo is not a natural environment. They can try and make it feel like natural environment, but when you live in cages, that's not a natural environment. Okay. When they live in wildlife, they can go around the forest and play around and move from one place to the other and hunt for food.
Wow.
So that's the natural environment. That's the environment they're supposed to be in. Okay. So ecosystem, this is an area where living animals or non-living things like trees, water, rocks, and soil interact with each other. Is that the definition of ecosystem that you're trying to say? Ecosystem is where living things and not living things, right, coexist, right? So you have animals living in an environment where it seems natural to them, right? Where there are plants, the environment is natural.
And they can do what they want in where they're supposed to be living.
Yeah. Okay. So there are different categories, right, or groups of wildlife. And the first one is carnivores. So carnivores are meat eaters, okay?
Lion.
And we have lions, we have cheetahs, we have African golden cat. And this cat is endangered species.
It's like not so nice one really. It's not very nice.
When something is endangered, it means that there's a little quantity of them left, right? Because people have been killing them, right? Or they've been dying because of. So they're almost getting to the point where they're becoming extinct. Extinct is you can't find them anymore. Just like we can't see dinosaurs anymore, right? Dinosaurs are extinct. So the African golden cat is almost at the point of extinction. So that means they call them endangered species, and they have to try and preserve them, make them.
Because other people want to kill the
Yes, there'll be people monitoring them, right? And they're in South Central Africa. So going forward, the other groups of wildlife that we have are the mammals with hoofs. So these are grass eaters, and examples of those are giraffes, camels,
rhinos.
white rhinos. And again, these white rhinos are endangered animals as well. Endangered again,
There's
they're almost,
not a lot of them.
there's not a lot of them left, and they're in South Africa. And camels can actually survive without water for days, and this is why camels are very useful in deserts, right? Because they can store water in their body for a long time.
Then humans can do it.
No, than horses, like donkeys can do, like horses can do, right? That's why you cannot travel long distance in the desert, with any other animals like donkeys, horses, right? But camels, you can definitely go thousands of miles.
Why they go all day?
That's why they use them a lot. In the olden days, when there were no cars, they used camels a lot to travel from one country to the other, right?
But it would be so,
Especially in the desert.
But it would be
especially
slow
in the desert.
motion. But it would be in slow motion.
It would be slow.
It will be slow, but they're very good in that kind of environment. So the other wildlife that we have, elephant, you can see bush baby. Have you seen that before? Bush baby. And hedgehogs. Okay.
I've seen a hedgehog.
All these are African wildlife. So now let's talk about the ecosystem, right? And the first one we're going to talk about is the savanna and grasslands. Okay, as you can see them. So for the African ecosystems, the first example that we have here is savanna and grasslands. And on the top image here, we see how they're distributed across the African continent. And the two major ones that we have are the Serengeti Plains of Tanzania and the Acacia Plains of East Africa. Okay, so the characteristics of savanna and grasslands are extensive grasslands with scattered trees and shrubs, just like we can see one of those the images there. And there are iconic species like lions, elephants, giraffes, zebras, and various antelopes that live in this ecosystem. And like I said before, the key regions: Serengeti in Tanzania, Masai Mara in Kenya, and the Kruger National Park in South Africa. So the next one is the rainforest. Okay, and again we see the distribution of the rainforest concentrated in the Central Africa, Congo area, right, and bit of down South Africa. So rainforests are dense, lush vegetation, high rainfall, and high biodiversity. And the wildlife that you have in the rainforest are like chimpanzees, gorillas, and various types of monkeys.
Monkeys?
Yes, and you have colorful birds.
So all types of monkeys?
Sorry?
What types of monkeys are in the
Various kinds of monkeys. You have colorful birds and a lot of insect species in the rainforest. Key regions is the Congo Basin, the Amazon Basin, and the West African rainforest. Okay. We have the Madagascar forest as well, and the Guinea forest of West Africa. So the desert, the main desert in Africa is the Sahara Desert. Okay, and the characteristics of this is arid landscapes with minimal vegetation, like we said before. The wildlife in this region has, animals like camels, desert foxes, and a variety of reptiles like sand snakes. And the key regions are Sahara Desert, which is in North Africa, Egypt, Sudan, Chad, Libya, and we have the Kalahari Desert in Southern Africa, and we have the Namib Desert in Southwestern Africa. So for mountains, again, we see the distribution of mountain in Africa, and the characteristics of mountains are high altitude ecosystem with unique flora and fauna. Okay, so those are kind of plant types. Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain in Africa. As you can see, it's over 19,000 feet high. And this middle image here is a mountain called Olumorok in Nigeria.
A mountain or a rock?
It's a mountain because you have to climb to get to that where that rock is.
Which rock?
Okay, it's not that high. It's about 450 feet
That's not so long.
tall. So even though the image is showing a rock, but it's a mountain. Actually, you have to climb up to get there.
How did you climb? How
Then-
did you climb?
The third image there is the Atlas Mountain, which is in Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. So it's very high as well, over 13,000 feet high. And the characteristics, like I said before, it has to be high altitude for mountains. The wildlife in mountains, Ethiopian wolves and various bird species that have adapted themselves to high altitudes. The coastal ecosystem, the characteristics for that is varied ecosystem along the coastlines, and that's what we're talking about here. So you see, this ecosystem is along the coastline. This is the Atlantic Ocean, right? You see all this ecosystem just close to where the water is, right? The coastline. And they include the mangroves, coral reefs, and coastal forest. Okay, and they also include the wetlands as well in South Sudan. The wildlife in this region, it's marine life such as dolphins, whales, sea turtles, and diverse fish species. The key regions of the coastal ecosystem in Africa is the Mozambique Channel, Seychelles, and Madagascar coastline. Okay, so African freshwater ecosystem, the largest freshwater ecosystem in Tanzania is the Lake Victoria. Okay, and what's the characteristics of the freshwater ecosystem? That's rivers, lakes, and wetlands. And the wildlife that we see in this ecosystem are hippopotamus, crocodiles, various fish species, and numerous bird species. And the key regions for this type of ecosystem, we see the Nile River Basin in Egypt, Lake Victoria, which is the African largest freshwater that cut across Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, and Lake Tanganyika in Tanzania as well. Now, talking about the timeline of the African wildlife and ecosystem. So prehistoric era, that's millions of years ago. Now going by scientific dating, we see that Africa is home to the oldest ecosystems and wildlife in the world. Okay? And the Paleolithic era, which is between 2.5 million years ago to 10,000 years BC, is showing the signs of early human ancestors. And the Eocene epoch, which is between 10,000 BC to present time, we see
What does BC stand for?
before Christ. Okay, we see early human societies, agriculture and trade routes being developed. Then the colonial era, which is late 19th century and early 20th century. We see European colonization, and during that time in Africa, there were a lot of hunting going on. They were killing a lot of animals, and this is the reason why some of those animals that I said were endangered species right now, most of them were killed, right? And a lot of changes were happening to the ecosystems in Africa. Then in the 20th century, they began to make effort to make sure that this endangered species, and this ecosystem are preserved. So there were a lot of conservation efforts started happening there, as well as, the increase in population in Africa as well. They have to manage that with the ecosystem. So in the 21st century, this is in the present day, we see a lot of ongoing challenges to habitat loss, climate changes, water shortages, and all those kind of stuffs are happening. So there's a lot of awareness to preserve the natural world that we have, to preserve animals, to preserve plants, and to preserve the environment, especially in Africa. So quiz. Question number 1. What iconic African animal is known as the king of the jungle and is commonly found in the Savanna ecosystem? A. Elephant. B. Giraffe. C. Lion. D. Cheetah. Question number 2. Which large mammal has adapted to the arid conditions of the Sahara Desert and can survive without water for long periods? A. Elephant. B. Camel. C. Oryx. D. Rhinoceros. Question number 3. What is the largest freshwater lake in Africa? Known for its diverse aquatic life and the Nile perch? A. Lake Tanganyika. B. Lake Malawi. C. Lake Victoria. D. Lake Chad. Question number 4. The African golden cat, a rare and elusive feline species, is native to which region of Africa? A. West Africa. B. East Africa. C. Southern Africa.
What does central mean?
D.
In the
Central
middle.
Africa.
What's it?
In the middle.
Question number 5. Which African country is home to the largest population of white rhinoceros? A species that has been successful conservation efforts. A. Namibia. B. Kenya. C. South Africa. D. Tanzania. So, in conclusion, the extent of how the African continent is blessed with various animals and ecosystem, as well as the huge importance of conservation and preservation, especially, to preserve this ecosystem and wildlife. And we've seen as well, based on the past topics that we've discussed, that some of this wildlife, some of this ecosystem are a means of tourism, which means they generate revenue to the countries that actually have this ecosystem. Like people will go and see Lake Victoria, people will go and travel to see to tourism in Kenya for safari. Some people will go to Egypt to go and see the pyramid in the desert. So all this ecosystem in Africa are means of the countries, making money, generating income and revenue for the countries, which is helping the economy of Africa. And we also see that if we don't, as humans, we don't protect these animals, this wildlife, and this
Then
ecosystem that we have,
loads of them will die.
okay, it will not. So you can imagine if there is no, rainforest, right? It does have impact to the climate, okay? Because if you don't have plants, right, or you don't have big in the rainforest, for instance, I said you need to have a lot of rain, and the trees are very tall trees, and lots of them, very lush vegetation. Those things actually help to trap a lot of carbon dioxide, right? Those big lush trees help to trap the carbon dioxide that is causing the global warming that we have right now. Okay.
You mean the bad air?
The bad hair, yes, you can call it that. That's good. Yeah, hold on. So without that ecosystem, right, the world will be even in a worse position right now. Okay, so that's the end.